my pathway was a little bit unconventional. I developed a very early interest, really during high school, in art and art history, and initially went to college thinking I was going to be an art history major, which I was. My interest in medicine developed really during college, but my primary career goal when I completed college was to be an art therapist. And what I thought I was going to do with that is work with patients, but from a more creative perspective, and really work closely with them and help them deal psychologically with what they were going through with their illnesses. So when I finished college, I went on and did an internship with an art therapist in Chicago for about a year. And during that time, I worked very closely with elderly Alzheimer's patients and really enjoyed every aspect of working with them in terms of the time I got to spend and how I got to know them. But at some point felt that I was missing something, not understanding that the medical reasons why they were where they were, and not being a part of the decision-making from that aspect, from the patient care aspect. So I really decided at that point, I need to be a doctor. I need to go to medical school. So I applied and got into medical school at UT Houston, and the rest is history. I came to Baylor for a very specific reason. I wanted to participate in the K-12 Clinical Scientist Training Program that the Baylor section in Hematology Oncology had to offer. One of my predecessors in my fellowship had participated in that program and had met with great success. And I knew her, and through my fellowship director had found out about the program. So I applied for that in my second year of fellowship and then joined Baylor in 2009 to be a part of that program. That program is a very unique and wonderful program because it provides 3 years of protected time for research and offers a degree, either a MS or a PhD, in clinical investigation. So those 3 years were really precious time during which I developed a Career Development Award grant and was able to produce significant preliminary data, which permitted me to submit that grant, which was later awarded as an NIH K23 Career Development Award. My research is in the area of telomere biology. So Elizabeth Blackburn, who recently shared the Nobel Prize for her work in telomerase and telomeres, explained it very nicely when she said that telomeres are like the plastic tips on the ends of your shoelaces. They protect the chromosomes from DNA damage, the ends of the chromosomes. And as we age, our telomeres shorten, and the enzyme telomerase helps to maintain telomere health and length over time. So what I do in my lab is try to understand how defects in telomeres and telomerase may affect or predispose children to developing cancer, and also be associated with certain toxicities with therapy, in that the telomeres may reflect, if too short, DNA damage that might occur and lead to specific problems that are indicative of DNA fragility or genomic instability. My primary research area is in leukemia, and what I've done is screen a large population of children with acute myeloid leukemia to look for defects in telomere biology and in telomerase-related genes. And in that I have found defects in several, about 20%, 1 in 5 of children, but not all of those are functionally impactful. So what I'm really doing now, what my laboratory focuses on, is not only screening pediatric cancer populations for these mutations or changes, but also to analyze them functionally in the lab and see if the in vitro effect of these defects mimics what we're seeing clinically. So not only to look at predisposition, but also at certain risks for specific toxicities with therapy. I'm looking to see if those changes also occur. The K-12 is really a turning point in my career. I feel like it's brought me to the place where I want to be, that this program has just been an amazing opportunity. And I didn't know about it when I went into fellowship. I don't think I'd really considered career paths or what would happen to me when I finished being a fellow. When I had joined my pediatric hematology oncology fellowship, my goal was mainly to get into fellowship. And then when I was there, the training where I was it was spectacular. It was really very good. But I realized partway through that what I really was looking for was clinical research training. I was lacking training in biostatistics and epidemiology, in areas that my particular fellowship training was unable to provide at the time, and knew that if I wanted to have my career go down that path, that I would have to seek additional training elsewhere once my fellowship was complete. So I approached my fellowship director and asked him if he knew of any such opportunities. And it turned out that a previous fellow, Karen Rabin, had actually left Stanford as a fellow and gone on to Baylor to participate in the K-12 clinical scientist training program, and had met with much success and was doing very well. So he suggested that I speak with her, which I did, and she was extremely encouraging. And when I proposed to my fellowship director that I might also be interested in doing the same program. We talked at length, and then right there in clinic, he picked up the phone and called Dr. Poplack and asked him if there were positions available and if he wanted a bright young fellow and to be a part of his program. So that set things in motion really for me, and resulted in numerous conversations by phone with Dr. Poplack before I was officially invited to come interview. And then I visited a few times and decided it was absolutely the right choice for me. So then ended up coming to Baylor in 2009, the summer of 2009. I did not know about the ICTR as a young investigator initially, and I was fortunate to have a very good advisory committee. And one of my advisors, Lisa Baumgars, reviewed my research plan, one of which my aims was to do a prospective study and measure telomere length over time in a AML, acute myeloid leukemia population, and to collect clinical data correlating with their toxicities and with their outcomes with therapy. And she really told me, you have to have a database for this. This is not something you can just collect on your own, and that you'll never be able to do this by yourself. So you really need to build a database. So why don't you talk with the folks over at ICTR and see if they can help you design a database. The design of the database is actually quite an expensive proposition, which was daunting initially, but I was very fortunate at the time to have the Chow Award, which helped to pay for the cost of that. And what they did was they designed a beautiful database that has an interface that can be used both at my institution and also at my collaborator's institution at MD Anderson. And they are able to enter patient data and also enter outcome data and clinical data associated with each subject, which I can then pull out and do statistical analysis on very easily. It's a very user-friendly database, and they did a beautiful job, and I'm really very grateful to them. But that particular aim, that prospective study, would have been extremely challenging to do if it had not been for that kind of database that was available. It was very challenging, and I had also just had a child. My son was born in 2012, so well before I had my technician. She's actually a very recent addition to my lab. I've only been working with her for about 4 months. Prior to that, I felt, and my mentors also felt, that it was very important for me to really be doing all the work myself and really learning these techniques. I don't come from a research background. I don't have a PhD yet, although I am now a PhD candidate. So I really wanted to learn the science and be there every step of the way. And I think that was very important, and I'm still doing that to many degrees. I work very closely side by side with my technician now. Before I had her, the challenges that I really had were my clinical obligations and administrative responsibilities, although not so significant, still took me away from the lab at least 2 days a week, so that I was really looking at coming in on the weekends to really contribute any meaningful amount to my research, I had to be there at least 5 days a week. So it was taxing on my home life. I do still come in on the weekends, but now I'm able to restrict that to when my son is napping. I'm fortunate to have the lab keep going and the experiments keep running when I'm away at a conference or when I'm in clinic. My technician is able to continue those experiments, and that's really been a wonderful gift. So I am greatly appreciative of that opportunity. It has certainly been more than I expected in terms of time, because obviously there's a lot of training that goes into hiring a technician. So it's really been quite a big investment, but I think it's one that will really pay off, and I hope to work closely with her for quite some time. I think I really would have to say joining Baylor and taking the advantage of that K-12 opportunity. There are so few times in a young research or clinical scientist's career where someone tells you you can have 75% protected time for 3 years. It was amazing, really a gift, and I was able to really be productive during that time. Most K-12s are 1 to 2 years. Ours is a 3-year program, and for that reason, very attractive. It's a faculty fellowship, so I joined as faculty, but also was able to get training and really take courses, and now initially was going to get a master's degree, but then decided to really pursue a PhD. So a little bit late in my career. Most people, I think, obtain their PhDs when they're medical students in our field, but I'm really able to do that now at this point in my career. It's a luxury, and it's really wonderful. I'm able to do what I love to do and also obtain a degree at the same time. I don't think I would be here today if it weren't for my mentors. Really, I have 2 mentors essentially, Alison Bertouche and Sharon Plon, both of which work in cancer genetics, and Alison Bertouche is also a telomere biologist. And together they've given me wonderful advice and support through the years since I've been at Baylor. They've helped me through every grant, really been truly present in my career, very receptive and very responsive when I've needed advice or when I've needed assistance. When I've had turning points in my career, they've been there every step of the way. Both of them are very available. They both have open door policies, and I've never had an issue accessing them. And they've also both been wonderful cheerleaders for me, very, very supportive and enthusiastic of what I've tried to do, but also quick to offer constructive criticism and guide me if they see that I'm making a misstep, or that if they feel as though I may be headed down a path that would be less productive, they're very quick to advise me and turn me away from that. So I really do owe a lot to them, both in my ability to obtain grant funding, but just in my career path in general. I feel like I have wonderful role models to emulate in my career. The K-12 program that I participated in was really designed around the mentorship, knowing that the K-23 is such a critical part of that career development award. Your mentors really make the award. It's one of the most important pieces. So Dr. Poplack takes it very seriously. And when I was interviewing for the position, long before I even knew for sure that I had the position, he was already vetting potential mentors for me. And by the time I came here, I'd known that Alison Bertouche was going to be my mentor for about 6 months, and we'd been in contact numerous times. Sharon Plon I'd met several times, and she was brought on later as we realized that I needed a clinical research mentor as well as a basic science mentor. But both of them were chosen by me, but also with the assistance of Dr. Poplack fairly early on in my career. I think the first thing that has been a theme in my career, as short as it's been, is that I've really been fortunate to have been presented with numerous opportunities, really just golden opportunities that I've been able to recognize and take advantage of. And I would say to just have the door open to those opportunities, just to consider when things fall out of the sky in your lap that it really is important to take advantage of those things when they arise. I've really tried and made an effort in my career to meet with faculty when they come to visit if they're doing research that's similar to mine. Take the time to get to know them and build those connections. Similarly, when I go to conferences, I try not to just sit and listen to the sessions, but I also try to build networking relationships outside of those conferences and consistently meet with those people every year so I can develop mentorships or mentors not only within my institution but also outside of my institution who've actually been quite helpful to me in my career. Grants are the same way. There are so many funding opportunities out there. You just have to look for them. And the second thing I suppose I've done is to really try to stay organized and keep track of all those funding opportunities. I think as a young investigator who's also female, it's always challenging to balance work and life at home. And I'm very fortunate that my section head, Dr. Poplack, believes that family comes first and foremost, which he always says to us religiously and really, I think, truly believes that family is the most important. I believe that too, but it's hard to manage everything and it's hard to do it all. So staying organized and practicing really good time management skills helps. Trying to keep wasting time to a minimum and really treasure the moments that you have with your family at home. So I try to do that as much as I can. And for grants, for me, that means keeping spreadsheets, making checklists, and making sure that I'm on top of all my deadlines. So that's really been helpful as well. And the last thing I would say is to persevere, because ultimately in this funding climate, it is hard to get grant funding, but there are opportunities out there. And if you really dedicate the time to write a solid, good grant that's been reviewed by your peers, and you know that it's good and you have excellent hypotheses and specific aims, then you can turn that grant into numerous funding opportunities. That's really the advice that helped me the most early on in the clinical scientist training program. That grant took me a year to write and it paid off, but it took a while. It was rejected the first time around and I made it better. And then I turned that grant to several other private foundations and was able to obtain additional funding for that. But really, it was a lot of work, but it was well worth it in the end. And perseverance is certainly important in terms of just keep on trying, and if you're rejected, keep on trying, because eventually it will come through.